In today's story, we'll see Homer decide to force Bart to eat broccoli, leading to a plan by Marge and Lisa to send father and son on a ship, where Bart shines as the second in command and solves family conflicts while Homer refuses to accept his authority.
Today, I wear the vest. Ha, ha.
The episode kicks off with a video of a skateboarder doing tricks, but he ends up getting hurt while performing them. As soon as the guy hits the ground, we see that it's Bart and Milhouse watching the video, both looking pretty bored since they weekly celebrate the fact that they've watched all the videos on that channel. After leaving a comment on the video, Bart says that now that they've got nothing left to watch, the only thing left to do is go play outside. But just as they're about to get up, an ad for an after party pops up on the computer screen, and the two start reading the details. They find out that the party is only for those 21 and older, and Milhouse is bummed they can't see it. But Bart finds a way around it by changing their birth dates during the sign-up process. Homer shows up at the bedroom door. Realizing what's about to happen, he closes the laptop and starts disconnecting all the cables, packing the device into a suitcase and tossing it out the window. Later, Homer talks to Bart, saying he was sure he had installed a program on all the devices in the house to block that kind of content. But Bart sarcastically replies that those programs don't work. However, when Marge does a search on mammograms, the site starts flashing a huge warning sign. Before they can continue, Milhouse escapes through the window, and the conversation between Homer and Bart resumes, with Homer complaining about Bart watching inappropriate videos when he should be cleaning his room. Then Homer complains about the mess in the room, with several cereal bowls scattered all over the place. Bart explains that he doesn't see the point in cleaning the room since it will just get messy again, but Homer doesn't accept that excuse because he just wants Bart to follow his orders. Bart makes it clear that he'll only clean the room when he feels like it, but Homer hopes that this phrase doesn't mean what he thinks it does.
Don't! That boy has no respect for my authority.
Marge comments that the two are quite similar, but Homer doesn't agree with that, as, unlike his son, he likes taking orders from someone who knows more than him. Marge then decides to offer another suggestion, saying he could clean Bart's room while he's asleep, and the next morning, Bart would thank him for cleaning everything. But Homer starts saying that his wife had been around Bart for so long that her mind had turned into watery ketchup, and he asks her to just go to sleep. Later, during dinner, everyone's eating until Bart says he's finished. But when his mom comments that she'd like him to eat a bit more broccoli, Bart refuses. Homer backs up what his wife just said, but even then, Bart decides not to obey and to irritate them a bit more, grabs another glass of milk. With that, Homer starts saying that milk is for babies and old folks who can't sleep. He then gets worked up, standing up from the table and ordering Bart to go back and eat the broccoli. Lisa chimes in and offers to eat the broccoli since she loves it, but Homer cuts her off, saying she'll get to eat his sundae while Bart won't leave the table until he finishes those broccoli. He even says he'll sit next to him until the plate is empty. Bart mocks his dad, saying he won't be able to stay there for long, but Homer is determined to stick around as long as necessary, and Bart doesn't give in. And that's when the challenge begins. In the broccoli challenge, an hour passes, and Homer is still insisting that Bart eat the broccoli. After 3 hours, they're still at it, but Bart doesn't give in.
Eat your broccoli.
No.
Lisa chimes in, saying she can't believe they spent an entire Saturday there. Then, Homer's phone rings with his buddy Lenny calling, asking him to come over because a fantasy football draft is about to start. Homer starts talking about how he needs to build a good team so he doesn't go through the same humiliation he did last year. He looks around and at the computer, just a few feet away. That's when Bart starts teasing his dad, saying he's going to give up the challenge and that if he wants, he can come find him in his room while he's eating cereal in yet another bowl. With that, Homer pulls the phone away from his ear and makes an unexpected decision. He says he wants his wife to draft his fantasy football team, shocking everyone in the kitchen. Marge warns that she doesn't know much about it, but Homer starts giving her the necessary info so she can access his team. Then he looks at Bart and orders him to eat the broccoli. At the 23rd hour, both are already pretty worn out. Then Bart's best friend shows up to say that Martin had taken some fighting classes and was currently beating up Nelson. This news gets Bart really interested in what's going on outside since he knows he might never get another chance like this. Meanwhile, Homer just smiles and starts teasing Bart, saying the ticket to go outside was just to eat the broccoli. But Bart declares that he'd never eat those little green things.
Today, I wear the vest. Ha, ha.
After missing this big moment, Bart makes it clear once again that he'll never eat broccoli. Soon after, Marge shows up, announcing that she finished drafting the football team and had picked 5 players. At this point, Homer doesn't even say anything to his wife. He just turns to Bart, making it clear that he will eat the broccoli. At the 46th hour, the two are still staring each other down until Marge comes in, saying that this situation needs to stop because Homer needs to get back to work or he'll get fired. Homer gives a short reply saying he'll just find another job after because any company would love to have a man who doesn't easily give up like him. He even lists a few places where he could work. Seeing this, Lisa turns to her mom and says she has an idea, but she'll need the broccoli for it. A few minutes later, Lisa shows up with 2 glasses of smoothies and explains that one of them has broccoli in it and the other doesn't. So each of them should drink one. And that way, no one would ever know if Bart ate the broccoli or not, but at least they could end this standoff. The two agree to do it, and as soon as Lisa places the smoothies on the table, Bart starts questioning which one he should take. But after too much hesitation, he ends up deliberately knocking both smoothies over, but pretends it wasn't on purpose and laments the loss of the broccoli.
You lick this table clean! Come on, lick it!
Seeing the scene, Marge comments that the problems between them are way beyond what she and her daughter can solve, and that there's only one thing left they can still try. During the night, while Bart is sleeping in his bed, 2 men sneak in, cover his face, and carry him out of the room. Shortly after, these same men enter Homer's room, and after needing some backup, they manage to take Homer too. In the next scene, we see both of them waking up on a ship out at sea. When Bart asks where they are, Homer just says he doesn't know and orders him to eat the broccoli, which Bart refuses once again. Soon after, they realize they're on an old boat and have been kidnapped. The ship's captain introduces himself as Bouchie and explains that Homer's wife had signed them up to spend a week at sea living like sailors, eating like sailors, and learning to resolve father-son conflicts like sailors, because there's no better place for that than the relationship ship. Hearing the ship's name, Homer starts laughing, taking it as a metaphor. But Bart interrupts his thoughts, blaming his dad for getting them stuck on a therapy ship. Homer snaps back, and the two start throwing life jackets at each other.
Shouldn't we do something?
We are doing something. We're empathizing.
Meanwhile, back home, Marge and Lisa are looking at the ad for the ship that sent Homer and Bart, convinced that by now, the two should be best friends. Soon, Marge gets a notification on Homer's computer from Lenny, saying that the teen Homer picked was awful. Marge is shocked by Lenny's harsh words, but Lisa explains that it's just how men usually talk to each other, comparing it to how women talk about their enemies. Marge quickly gets the comparison. More notifications start rolling in, with all of Homer's friends insulting his fantasy football team, even making some threats in the messages. Marge gets angry, saying she won't stand for that kind of teasing since she doesn't agree, and decides to bring out the big guns. The scene then cuts to Marge at church, praying for God to help her husband's friends understand that a fantasy football team isn't worth hurling insults online. As soon as she finishes her prayer, she gets another notification from one of Homer's friends insulting his team again. Reading the message, she looks around, surprised that this is happening in church, and can't accept it. The Reverend asks for a moment of silence for the town of Shelbyville, and Marge quickly checks her phone and sees a notification from the Reverend himself. She starts to stress out, panicking, and says she needs to turn off the Wi-Fi. Marge jumps up, runs to where the device is, grabs it, and bolts out of the church. Meanwhile, Lisa calmly follows her, explaining to everyone that her mom is just having a stressful moment because her husband is out at sea. On the relationship ship, everyone is gathered for a meeting, where the captain starts by saying he knows how hard it is for people to talk about their feelings in front of strangers. That's why the best option is to sing. He grabs an accordion and starts singing, being the first to share his feelings.
I'm so happy to be singing. Now, Homer!
After being rescued and back on the ship, the captain asks Cletus and his son what brought them there. Cletus' son explains that his dad only praises him all the time and never lets him make mistakes. Next, the captain asks Bart and Homer the same question, but Homer doesn't react at all. The captain then assesses Homer's condition and concludes that he has scurvy. He asks when was the last time Homer had vitamin C, and Homer reveals that years ago, he had an orange cocktail. The captain then tells Bart that his dad will spend the next few days eating a lot of lemons while they'll be enjoying the mighty nectar of strength. When Bart asks what that is, the captain explains that it basically means climbing, and he'll be doing it a lot. The following scenes show Homer eating lemons while Bart engages in various other activities like hoisting the ship's sail, climbing the rigging, searching for food, and adjusting the sails. Meanwhile, Homer finishes a barrel full of lemons and feels pleased with himself, but the captain arrives with a new barrel of even sourer lemons. Later, Homer helps hoist the sails, which ends up speeding up their route. We see the other passengers climbing the ship's sails, with Bart reaching the top near the flag. At night, Homer is wandering around the ship, munching on another lemon, when he stumbles upon Bart, who has just tied a different kind of knot with a rope. Bart calls him over to check out his knot. At first, Homer doubts Bart, then he ends up being surprised. After noticing some details, like Bart's disheveled hair and callous hands, Homer realizes that Bart's actually enjoying this. Bart, on the other hand, doesn't see why that would be wrong until Homer explains that he's supposed to hate everything he hates, listing several examples, including hating the ship. Bart then responds that he's old enough to choose his own dislikes and makes it clear that the ship isn't one of them. Irritated, Homer says that Bart has become the worst enemy he could imagine. Just then, the captain approaches and praises the knot Bart made with the rope, making Bart smile. Bart mentions that he tied the knot as the captain had taught him and starts talking about the order he followed to create the knot. But the captain explains that the traditional way is a bit different and starts showing how it's done. Later, all the crew members are gathered, and the captain says that everyone has made great strides during the trip. Ned Flanders and Homer share the achievements they're proud of, and the captain agrees that they're good but highlights that one crew member truly embraced the seafaring life. He reveals that this person is Bart Simpson and announces that Bart will be promoted to midshipman. Homer spits out all the lemons he was eating in protests, telling the captain that his son can't be superior to him because Bart couldn't order him around. However, the captain explains that Bart is now his superior and can indeed give orders to Homer. If Homer refuses, he'll be chained up to learn discipline, but at least he won't miss the father-son dance. Homer watches the dance while complaining about not liking this golden age of sailing.
Seaman Homer, you're supposed to be swabbing the deck.
Why should I? Just gonna get dirty again.
I'm in charge. You do what I say.
And Homer responds sarcastically, saying he'll do everything Bart orders. He starts scrubbing the floor, a wooden post, and even the surface of the sea, which ends with him getting attacked by an octopus that climbs onto his head. Back on the mainland, Marge is walking through the streets with Patty and Selma, venting about how fantasy football had turned all the men in town into monsters who only knew how to insult each other. One of her sisters comments that men live in a sad world where they joke about all sorts of things, including women. As they chat, they spot a scene where men are gathered, indeed making jokes about these subjects. Patty and Selma give Marge some advice, saying that there was only one way to make the men stop that kind of behavior: defeating them in fantasy football. The day of the game arrives with the smell of frozen food in the air. Marge Simpson is sitting in front of her computer screen, ready to play against her opponent, Mo Shislak. Lissa reveals that her mother had prepared meticulously, checking injury reports, scouting reports, and even studying tapes of housewives talking about football.
Doesn't match my phone.
Taekwondo's mind won't be on the game. And benched.
Carl comments that Homer's team had asked him to start with 5 forwards, which he agreed to without hesitation, believing it would surely be the funeral for Homer's team. However, there was to be no funeral, as the game day weather favored Marge's 5 forwards, who managed to pull off incredible plays, even a triple play. Mo is shocked by an 85-yard goal and rushes to refresh the news pages. But the truth is that no update in the world could change the results, where an inexperienced woman, a housewife, was able to defeat an extremely experienced player, proving to everyone that fantasy football depended only on luck. Back on the ship, Bart is observing the landscape when the captain approaches, calling him midshipman and hoping his journey is going well. Bart responds that he's not sure since it's hard to deal with someone not respecting his orders. At that moment, the captain warns of an epiphany but quickly comments that he's sure the journey is also a great learning experience for Homer. The scene then cuts to Homer, lying in a hammock, probably drunk, singing about his state. When Bart sees him in this condition, he alerts the captain, who intervenes, saying Homer didn't need alcohol. The captain then takes the can from Homer's hand and reveals that he ended up on that ship because he was an alcoholic. After he started sailing the seas, he no longer craved the delicious taste of rum.
You know what, Homer? I've always wanted to eat a parrot. What's the big deal? It's just like a green chicken.
Amid this scene, all the crew members observe the two. But luck was no longer on the side of the relationship ship. The same winds that helped Marge win in fantasy football were now approaching the questionable therapeutic ship with a force that brought tragedy. While Clytus warns of an imminent attack and everyone waits for a solution from the captain, he just tries, unsuccessfully, to jubbo. Apu decides he'll call the Coast Guard, but as soon as he grabs the radio, Ned warns about the therapy bears. The captain, seeing that saving the bears would make a good story in the newspapers, tries to jump into the sea, but is stopped by the other crew members. He then thinks that now a bad story about him not saving the bears would be published. Meanwhile, Cletus ends up insulting his son, who is happy to finally get something genuine from his father, and the two embrace. Bart realizes that he is the highest-ranking person on the ship and knows it's his duty to get everyone safely back to shore. He takes the helm and starts talking to Homer, saying they need to navigate around the lighthouse to reach the port. However, Homer thinks Bart has lost his mind, insisting that they can't sail in this situation and should drop anchor and wait for the storm to pass. The two argue about how neither of them ever listens to the other, while everyone on the ship watches the fight. After a tense moment, Bart extends his hand and shows Homer the broccoli he had saved, deciding to eat it in front of everyone. As he does this, he asks Homer that they both start respecting each other from now on. Homer, moved, agrees and quickly puts himself under his son's command. Bart begins giving instructions, and Homer follows every one of them. The captain, witnessing this, comments that once again, the relationship ship has a success story, then hides in a barrel full of drinks. With everyone on the ship working together, they sail until they reach their desired destination. Upon disembarking, Homer and Bart meet Marge, who asks if the sea adventure helped resolve their issues. Homer responds by doing a coordinated dance with Bart, showing that they are closer now. But the episode ends with the dance being interrupted when an old man appears, complimenting them on their sailor dance and suggesting they wouldn't want to take another trip without an old sea captain. At that moment, the entire family quickly moves away and gets into the car, leaving the old man alone and saddened by their reaction.
That's gonna hurt for a long time. Yar.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and your comment. See you in the next videos.